Welcome back to Sissy Maya. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to never miss an update. Additionally, consider subscribing to my Patreon to get access to these features, and much more. It was the strangest thing I had ever witnessed. A cloud of glowing particles shifted rapidly, yet moved slowly all at once. The colors were mostly red, white, and green, almost as if it were a Christmas-themed cloud. The shape it took seemed to resemble a stout person. To set the scene, I was standing outside my favorite lingerie shop, Secret Whispers. Chantel Burros, the owner, had really outdone herself with the window display this year. It was like a winter wonderland made of nylon, chiffon, lace, and satin. There were so many beautiful pieces I wanted for myself, maybe more than I should admit. The centerpiece of the display was a stunning corset in a deep scarlet, with black satin piping and delicate black lace trim. It was paired with matching adorable panties, black stockings, and shoes that were nothing short of perfection. Chantel had named her mannequin Julia, and for a moment, I was envious of her. Let me introduce myself. I'm Lucas Rivers, the last of my family line and a source of disappointment for my parents. At 34, unmarried, and with no children to carry on the Rivers name, I sometimes wonder if I'll ever find someone to share my peculiar interests. While I own plenty of lingerie, dresses, and shoes, I'm always on the lookout for more. Chantel knows who buys the items, though I pretend they're for a girlfriend I don't have. She's too perceptive not to have figured it out. She's not only smart but also attractive, and sometimes I wonder if I should ask her out. But then, I'm too shy. Now, back to the cloud. As I was admiring a creamy silk slip, I noticed something strange in the reflection of the window. At first, I thought it was just Christmas lights from across the street, but it began to take on a shape. Turning to get a better look, I saw small colored lights eventually revealing themselves to be Christmas tree lights. The shape became more defined, eventually resembling Santa Claus, but unlike any Santa I had seen before. Instead of the usual red and white, this one had greenery, holly, I think, along with climbing vines wrapping around him, even hanging from his hat. Hello? I called out. Lucas Des Moines Rivers, a voice responded. Yes, I suppose, I said, still trying to process what was happening. Given your appearance, I'm guessing you're Santa Claus? Or, perhaps, the Santa Claus? Not quite, the figure replied. But a reasonable assumption. I am Beauregard Claus, though you may call me Mr. Claus. I was told I'd find you here, gazing at the lingerie in Chantel's shop window and making wishes. I was confused. How did he know I was here? And how could he possibly know about my secret life? No one did. My secret was Carol Roxanne Rivers, an alter ego that emerged when I dressed in anything feminine. Carol was the woman I dreamed of being, but my shyness kept me locked away from that reality. As if reading my thoughts, Mr. Claus added, of course, I know about Carol. I know everything about you both. Why do you think I'm here? Do you think it's about my health? Or the snow that's about to fall? It seemed he had the ability to read minds as well. I'm not sure I understand, Beau. Mr. Claus, I stammered. None of this makes any sense. Can you explain? In the street, he replied, his tone sharp. No, Rivers. He pronounced my name in a way that made it sound almost playful. Take me to your place. It's only 90 seconds away, right? Come on, let's move. My feet are starting to freeze. I doubted I could have refused, even if I wanted to. Something inevitable was unfolding, and I couldn't help but be curious about where it would lead. How did he know about Carol? How could he know her by name? 5 minutes later, I had poured brandies and lit the gas fire, while Beauregard stood by, water dripping from his boots onto my coffee table. Should I take your boots and put them in the hallway, or closer to the fire? I offered. They're fine, he replied. Just be quiet and listen. I have a lot to do tonight. I'll show you your past, present, and future, give you some options and hints, and then let you figure it out on your own. That sounds familiar. Hasn't it been done before? I asked.
Not in a French maid's outfit, he responded, gesturing with his left pinky. Before I could react, I found myself dressed in the traditional costume. Now, as I said, be quiet. Follow me. We're going to start with the past, as it's meant to be. With a wave of his right finger, we were instantly standing side by side in the hallway of a large house. I could hear Hark the Herald Angels Sing playing faintly in the background, and I recognized the house immediately. It was the one I grew up in, where my parents still lived, waiting for grandchildren to spoil. This is 1980, Beauregard said. Take a look in the living room, the one with all the lights and music. I know where the living room is, I snapped, my irritation getting the best of me. This is my house. 1980 was the year I got that red bike, the one that was a big upgrade from my kiddie bike. That's right, he said. You're 8 years old. Look around. Can you see the kid checking the parcels under the tree, trying to guess what's inside? The bike is in the garage, by the way. That's me, I muttered. And I assume I'm invisible in this situation? No, he said with a smile. Everyone can see you, and they'll laugh at you for being dressed as a French maid. I recoiled in horror and tried to run, but Beauregard grabbed my arm. Gotcha, he said, grinning. Not funny, I said, embarrassed. I'm really shy, you know. Yes, I know, he said. And that's exactly the point. Watch what happens next. I didn't want to watch. I already knew what was coming. The boy, the younger version of me, slipped out of the room as his parents settled in to watch It's a Wonderful Life. Strangely, I saw him as a separate person, even though it was me. He crept upstairs, closed the door behind him, and I followed as he pulled a camisole and matching panties from under his mattress. He had taken them from my mother's dresser a week before and hidden them, hoping his mother wouldn't notice. Since she hadn't said anything, he assumed she hadn't realized they were missing. The boy held the soft fabric, feeling it, pressing it to his face, eyes closed. The set was pale peach silk with delicate embroidered lace, my mother's best lingerie. I still remember how it felt, holding it. Eventually, he undressed and put on the lingerie. It was slightly too big, but it stayed on because my mother was petite. Just then, footsteps echoed outside, and the boy froze, just like I had. He quickly dove under the covers as the door opened and his mother entered. Lucas, what are you doing? We were going to open a couple of early presents. Come on, honey. Get out of bed and come downstairs. She pulled back the covers to coax him out of bed, and there she found him, terrified, dressed in her best lingerie. Lucas, what the hell are you doing wearing my underwear? I wondered where it went. What's wrong with you, you little freak? She stormed out of the room, shouting for my father. Mark, come up here and see what your son is doing. We watched as the boy's humiliation grew, 1,000 times worse, as his father entered the room. His mother pointed at the poor child, curled in a fetal position and sobbing. Mark, take a look. This child is a freak. My best underwear. God knows what is done in them. I'll have to burn them. Get up, you little weirdo. Get up now. The boy, still crying, was forced to get out of bed, and his mother ripped the lingerie off him. She marched out of the room, heading toward the fireplace, leaving the boy alone with his father. I don't know what to say, Lucas, my father said, his voice heavy with disappointment. I don't understand why you took your mother's things and felt the need to wear them. I get that men sometimes do that sort of thing, but it's not something we can tolerate in this house. I'm deeply disappointed in you. Put your pajamas back on and get back into bed. Consider yourself grounded for the foreseeable future while I talk to your mother. Don't let me or her catch you doing this again, or there will be serious consequences. Understand? Yes, I sobbed. Good. I'll be trying to calm your mother down, and I don't want to see you until morning. He left, shutting the door behind him. Mr. Claus and I watched as the boy, still sobbing, climbed back into bed and put on his pajamas. From downstairs, we could hear my mother's angry voice, the same words echoing over and over, pervert and freak. That's what stuck with me from that night, the terrible sound of her ranting. I snapped back to reality in my living room, where Beauregard Claus sat across from me, sipping a large brandy. "Sorry you had to relive that, Lucas," he said. "But it's important to remember where you started. Your mother could have used a lot more understanding. Usually, it's the father who reacts like that, but your father, unbeknownst to your mother, did something similar when he was about 10. He didn't get caught, though. It was a one-time thing. He probably hoped yours would be, too." My eyes widened. He did. "Mr. Claus, I've got to be honest, this French maid's costume is quite a lot, and I'm feeling a bit distracted. Could I take a quick look in the mirror?" "No, you can't. We have work to do." The world spun, and suddenly I was sitting beside Beauregard on a plush couch in what looked like a club. Women were mingling, chatting, laughing, and drinking. "Are you sure they can't see us?" I asked, glancing around nervously. "Only if I want them to," Beauregard replied sharply. "Now, be quiet and pay attention." "What if someone wants to sit on the couch?" I asked, unsure of the situation. "This couch is a fourth-dimensional construct," he explained. "It exists in its own world. The women you see will pass right through us, like opposite poles of a magnet. Now, stop asking questions." "Sorry, sir." "If you pay attention, you'll notice something important. These women aren't just women. This is the New York branch of an exclusive club for people who enjoy presenting as women. Some are trans, but mostly they're just people enjoying their annual Christmas party. Look closely, they're all shapes and sizes, but they all dressed to the best of their ability. Some knew they didn't look entirely convincing, but they came here to have fun with their friends, who accept them unconditionally because they share a common bond and lifestyle. Is this a lesson in coming out, in being true to yourself?" I asked, trying to understand. "Exactly," Beauregard said. "Look at that lady over there, the one in the red sequined skirt and top. She must be around 60 and definitely not petite, but she's having the time of her life. No one would mistake her for a young woman, but she doesn't care. She's happy with who she is. She owns her identity as a crossdresser, living her life by her own rules. That's one of the lessons we're focusing on tonight, knowing who you are and living authentically, regardless of what others think." I watched the woman enjoying herself, accepting her identity with confidence. I couldn't help but feel a little envious. The waitress, who looked just like me, passed by, and I couldn't help but notice the other servers, also dressed similarly. They were all striking, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of longing. "Painful subject," I said, taking a sip of the champagne that had appeared in my hand. "It tasted incredible." "It seems like that one incident really shaped how your mother saw you," Beauregard said. "Even though it was never mentioned again, it's like she was waiting for you to slip up. She started barging into your room, always making excuses to be there, and she clearly searched your room regularly. You could hear them arguing downstairs, and it upset you that she couldn't let it go. Your father, on the other hand, just treated you like normal. He didn't let it affect his relationship with you." I nodded slowly, watching the scene unfold around me, reflecting on the past. "Let's move on, Carol," Beauregard said. "You left home at 18, and my sources tell me you threw yourself into a world of not just nylon, satin, and lace, but also high-end clothes, skirts, tops, ball gowns, stunning shoes, and sensational wigs and makeup. Try this on." Suddenly, I was standing in a crowd, holding a tray of champagne flutes. I looked over to where the couch should have been, and Beauregard raised his glass in a salute before turning to chat with the waitress who had taken my place. For a brief moment, panic set in. Hands reached out to take glasses from my tray, and within seconds, I was in need of a refill. I spotted a waitress emerging from a doorway with a fresh tray and quickly made my way to a serving area. I swapped my tray, and the girl behind me flashed a bright smile. "Hi, honey, I don't remember you. What's your name, doll?" Carol," I replied, still adjusting to the situation. "Great to meet you, Carol. You look amazing." That costume really suits you. Isn't this party just the best? Dreams coming true all at once, costumes, the girls, the lights, the music, the dresses, it's like heaven. Better get out there, though. The other girls are going to need more drinks. See you later. Back in the room, it became clear that the waitresses weren't just staff, they were guests too. I found myself drawn into conversations with some truly spectacular girls. This part is important. Every single one of them complimented how I looked. I was amazed by how universal the praise was, and I began to relax. I kept trying to find a mirror, but each time I looked, it seemed blocked by people, plants, or curtains. Frustration mounted, and I could tell Beauregard's claws was behind it. Eventually, I found myself seated next to him again, his cheek adorned with lipstick. "Nice girl, that one," he remarked. She said she'd been bad all year and was looking forward to a good spanking under the Christmas tree. "Did you enjoy that, Carol?" "Yes," I replied, "a lot." "Excellent. Let's go." In an instant, the scene shifted, and we were standing in a spacious bedroom. A grand four-poster bed draped in white silk sat at the center, with delicate pillows scattered across the white spread. A gorgeous white silk gown and robe lay on the bed, waiting for their owner to wear them. It was the most feminine room I had ever seen. The door opened, and in walked Chantal Burros, wearing a magnificent red satin dress with a fitted waist and voluminous skirt. Her cleavage was striking, and she looked stunning, though she was crying. "Forget that jerk," she shouted. "What a pig. How could he dump me on Christmas Eve for a barmaid? Screw him." She threw her clutch across the room in frustration. "Maybe I'm better off without him." She collapsed onto the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. Beauregard spoke again. "Carol, you hear a lot of judgment about barmaids and their supposed lack of morals. The truth is, their morals are no different from anyone else's, secretaries, lawyers, housewives. It's just that barmaids tend to have better makeup and they meet men who are drinking to forget. That's all." "Right," I said, watching Chantal. Chantal stood up, unzipped her gown, and pulled it off, revealing a red silk corset and a multi-layered tulle petticoat. Her red stockings and high pumps completed the look. I was mesmerized. She looked absolutely breathtaking. I already knew she was a kind person from our interactions in her shop, but seeing her like this was something else entirely. As Chantal hooked her thumbs into her panties, I suddenly found myself back in my apartment. "That's not fair, Mr. Claus," I said, feeling unsettled. "Yes, it is," he replied. "We're not voyeurs, Carol. But Chantal definitely makes the idea tempting." "Are we matchmaking here?" I asked, confused. "Why else would you take me to Chantal's bedroom? Do I look like the president of the Lonely Hearts Club?" Beauregard retorted, pointing at me. Suddenly, we were standing at the edge of a dark, sinister ravine. Okay, sorry," I muttered. He pointed again, and we were outside secret whispers. He flicked his ring finger, and champagne flutes appeared once more. "Have a sip, Carol. We need to go through some potential futures, and I need you to be strong for what's coming. We've seen the past and the present, and if you don't have some idea of where I'm going with this, then you're dense, and I don't think you are. I think you're just shy. Follow me." What followed was a series of scenes, some terrifying, others delightful, some depressing, and the worst of all, ordinary. As we moved through them, explanations and insights flooded into my mind, as if through some telepathic link with Beauregard. In one vision, I was old, still dressed in a negligee, but definitely alone. I looked wistful, like I had missed opportunities that I should have seized. I was still fit, but there was no joy in my life. A small, sad Christmas tree sat in a pot on the table, its lights flickering on and off. I found myself as just Lucas now, having given up cross-dressing and settled into a normal life. I was married to a woman who looked like Nicole Kidman's more beautiful sister, and we had 4 kids. The noise in the house was deafening as they dug through the Christmas tree, hunting for presents and demanding chocolate. Then came an unpleasant scene where I seemed to be someone's personal servant. I was still dressed in the French maid's outfit, but I quickly asked Claus to get me out of there. The final scene took me to a moment with a beautiful girl who understood me and didn't mind that I was a crossdresser. I didn't get a good look at her, but I guessed it was probably Chantal.
Anything appeal?
Beauregard asked as we returned to my apartment. Before you answer, I have one final offer to make, he continued. I have the power and the written authority of my brother to make this offer. My brother's name is Sigmund Claus, in case you were thinking I meant the jolly fat man who brings gifts. Sigmund is the head of the family. Santa has to reapply for his job every year because they eliminate the position every Boxing Day. You'd better hope Rory Claus never gets the job, or all you'll get for Christmas is squid rings. He paused. Listen carefully, Carol. What if I told you I could separate Carol from Lucas? I'd create two distinct people, one, a real girl named Carol, and the other, a real guy named Lucas. You'd share memories up until the point of separation, but after that, you'd be your own people. Would I, as Carol, still look like I do now? I asked. Yes. Go look in the mirror. I went to my room, and I looked incredible in the French maid's uniform. It felt like I could be this way forever. You like it? Beauregard asked. Very much, I replied. There's a catch to this offer, he added. You'd be a real girl, but Lucas would be incapable of cross-dressing. He would have no desire for it. He wouldn't feel the thrill of silk against his skin, of stockings sliding up his legs. For Carol, it would become routine, but Lucas would never experience that thrill again. I thought about it for a moment. The joy of cross-dressing was in the act itself, and if I didn't cross-dress, I wouldn't feel that rush. It was a tough decision, and ultimately, I rejected the offer. I reject your offer, fascinating though it is, I said. Good decision. You're on your own now, Carol, Beauregard said. By the way, we were at Chantal's place yesterday, and the store is still open. It's Christmas Eve again. With that, he disappeared in a swirl of red, green, and white, leaving me to make my own choices. I had an amazing time with Beauregard, but now it was up to me to act on it. The party where I had served drinks had been incredible, and I had a card with the address in the top of my stocking. But, having been pointed in one direction, I decided Chantal was my next stop. To my surprise, I was still dressed in the French maid's outfit, and I mentally thanked Claus for his gift. I could almost hear him saying, "You're welcome." Reluctant to undress, I eventually changed into male clothing, grabbed a coat, and headed for Secret Whispers. I saw Chantal behind the counter and didn't hesitate. I walked up to her and said, "Hello." "Hello, Lucas." "Last-minute shopping?" she asked, smiling. "Anything you'd like in particular?" "Yes," I said, taking a deep breath. "I'd like to take you out sometime. Maybe for dinner or a movie." She looked stunned and stunningly beautiful. "Why, I'd love to, Lucas. I'm just closing. Why don't we find a place and grab something to eat tonight? I don't have anything at home." "Sure," I said. "That sounds nice. Just give me 3 minutes," she said as she finished her paperwork. The cafe down the street was nearly empty, and we got a table immediately. I couldn't believe how quickly things were moving. Later, we went to a small bar, and eventually, we kissed and wished each other a Merry Christmas before parting for the night. In true fairytale fashion, this story had a happy ending. We swapped life stories over dinner and drinks, and Chantal admitted she had always suspected I was into lace and silk. But that didn't matter to her, it just meant I probably had a softer, more feminine side, unlike Porky the chauvinist pig, who had dumped her the night before. We started dating, and in 3 weeks, we were inseparable. 3 months later, I moved into her place, and we're still madly in love. I'm living in silk heaven.